4 boats, 1 mission: find Vaquita, photograph them, record them, and find out how to monitor their population. I joined the Vaquita Express, a sailboat with scientists from the UK and US searching for Vaquita using sound. I meet up with NOAA scientist Jay Barlow.
The science of porpoise detection has really evolved a lot in the last 10 years. One of the methods is to tow a hydrophone array. One of the first people doing that, and the real expert on board, is Jonathan Gordon.
Well, I guess my particular role on this project, it revolves around the use of towed hydrophone and the application of some techniques for detecting porpoise clicks that we've developed in the UK. In the UK, porpoises, harbour porpoises, which are very much like Vaquita, just slightly larger, are our commonest inshore cetacean. And like Vaquita, they have a particular problem with entanglement in gill nets. And like Vaquita, they're very difficult to see. And the problem with harbour porpoises, as far as detecting them, is that they make a very narrow band, very high frequency click vocalization. But one of the nice things that's happened recently is that computers have got fast enough for us to be able to detect the real waveforms of the clicks. A downside of making such a high frequency vocalization is that they don't actually travel very far through the seas. So the sorts of ranges we would typically get for harbour porpoises are of the order of about 300 metres. 800 metres would be an absolute top. I guess one of the things we're doing is bringing a tool we developed in cold waters around Scotland and trying to apply it here. And we're picking up Vaquita quite efficiently. So we can do better, but even as we're doing at the moment, I think we're doing something that will be useful in terms of monitoring the population in the long term.
Even though this is a relatively inexpensive survey method, cheaper than this would be simply putting a porpoise detector out on a buoy and leaving it out there. And if we can develop porpoise detectors that don't require any people at all, can operate 300 or 360 days a year, collecting data, then we can get a lot more data to really detect whether porpoises in this area are increasing or decreasing in abundance.
So that has big conservation implications then?
Absolutely. We know that the population is small. We don't really need to know whether it's 100 or 200. That's kind of irrelevant at this point. What we really need to know, and as soon as possible, is whether the new conservation measures that the Mexican government is putting in place in this area are effective or not. There's one thing that's causing the problem, and that's gill net fishing. If we can remove that one problem, we have a chance. So I'm really optimistic, especially with the change in philosophy within the Mexican government, that this will not be a repeat. It would be an absolute tragedy to lose another large mammal so soon after the demise of the Yangtze River dolphin.
Next, I joined the NOAA research vessel David Starr Jordan. It was their job to count the remaining animals. But how would they do this from such a large ship?
Here we are on the flying bridge of the David Starr Jordan. It's a ship we've used to estimate abundance for cetaceans in the North Pacific for the last 30 years. And we do that with these huge binoculars that you see behind me that are called Big Eyes. They're 25 power binoculars. We can see dolphins jumping 6 miles away. And the way that we do the line transect is it's a statistical estimation. So we follow these tracks in a grid line over the distribution of the species that we're interested in.
That means we take the ship down a line and we look on both sides of the line looking for the animals. And when we see them, we record them. We also record the distance they are from the line. And from data of that kind, we're able to estimate the density of animals, that is, how many animals there are per square kilometer. And from that, the number of animals, since we know the area that we surveyed. So a line transect is one of the major methods of estimating both plant and animal abundance in wildlife studies.
And there's a dorsal fin. It's right in the nearest streak. Yeah, I'd say that's Vaquita.
Well, the most distant Vaquita that we see are probably about 2 miles out there.
We did a similar cruise in 1997, that's 11 years ago. The estimate of abundance from similar line transect survey was 567. We think they're somewhere between 100 and 200, but that's what we'll see at the end. How many, we'll make a new estimate of abundance, yes.
The other thing that the Jordan is doing that is very important to this project is it's launching these temporary research buoy that allows us to actually put out these porpoise detectors that can sample the whether there are porpoise present or not for months at a time. And we're really hoping that this is going to be the future of monitoring. So we'll use the data from those buoys to actually sit down with the scientists when all the research is in and actually come up with a design that will allow us to monitor with a level of precision that will be useful for the government of Mexico to move forward in conservation.
I have to take the pods off of the tripod, so just whatever is easiest for you beyond that. I won't be able to deal with them while they're on the tripod.
Okay, we'll leave the tripod here and just bring the pods back.
Okay, that sounds great. I'm all ready for you.
Kinds of data. We have these visual sightings, and we know how much effort. So we have sightings in a certain amount of effort, and that gives us an idea of the number of animals here. We have acoustic data. That also gives us some idea of the number of animals. The third general kind of data that we have is something about the number of boats fishing and what that means for how many animals will get killed.
In this case, unlike our usual surveys, which cover huge areas, we're covering a very small area with very tight line transect grids. So we'll go through this very close to the same areas over and over again. And one of the common questions we get is, well, aren't you counting the same animals over and over again? And because it's a statistical method, the answer is yes, but in a sense we don't care. We're trying to answer the question of density and then extrapolate that to area. The strength to a visual survey, from my perspective, is that it's really very simple technology. You know, when I look through binoculars and I see a vaquita and I know how many are there, I feel really solid that I've got data in the can and I can feel good about it. On the other hand, we know that the visual data just isn't of sufficient precision. It just isn't good enough to tell us whether these populations are recovering or not. For the visual, we're limited to having a big ship out here with a really high platform, with really, really experienced people. On the other hand, with acoustics, you can use many fewer people, you can use a smaller boat, or better yet, you can use buoys and just leave them out there. They can gather data through much higher wind conditions, through all different seasons, and so I think we'll learn a lot more from the acoustics, even though as visual creatures we're a little less comfortable with it. It's data that we'd never get any other way. And so they're a very nice pairing together, and they'll give us the best data that we can get on an animal that's a very secretive creature.
I decided it was time to leave the researchers and learn more about the conservation programs to save Vaquita and see if they're working.